This is part 2 of chapter 3 of Becoming Sister Wives from the point of Christine. I loved Cody and Mary, and although my crush on Cody was getting serious, I wasn't interested in marriage yet. Still, I was always eager to hang out with them. Whenever my parents hosted a volleyball party, Mary and Cody always topped the guest list. After spirituality and faith, the trait my dad values most is athleticism, so he was taken with Cody from the start. Whenever I talked to my dad about boys I was interested in, he always steered the conversation in the same direction. And how is Cody? He'd ask. Cody made a big splash when he joined our little faith. He was nice looking, which impressed a lot of women, but he also was well spoken and outspoken. He was confident when he talked in front of a crowd. He knew how to take a spiritual concept and deliver it in a positive and inspiring way. He made a good impression on the people in charge of our church and was often called upon to speak at fireside meetings. About a year after I met Cody and Mary, Cody organized a youth trip up to his parents' ranch in Wyoming. Cody wanted to expose his younger peers to his parents' lifestyle and introduce his parents to young people in their new faith. By this time, it was pretty clear that I had developed a serious crush on Cody. I was always hanging around Mary and him, so when we all piled in our caravan of cars to drive to Wyoming, I got someone to drive my car, and I made sure that I rode in Cody's. 19 people headed up to the ranch for the weekend. We set off from my house in Utah, but when we hit the mountain passes, we drove into a massive snowstorm. It was unbelievably slow going, and we had to stop and take turns pushing one another's cars. The drive should have taken half a day, but we wound up being on the road overnight because of the weather. Since we were all young, it was still fun being out there together. It felt like an adventure. Warning, this is about the nachos. Now it's from the point of view of Cody. We drove all night to Wyoming. It was dangerous. Mary and I rode in the front seat, and Christine sat on the back. I kept looking at Christine in the rearview mirror. For months, I'd been watching her. I loved her spark, her bubbliness. She was so full of life and enthusiasm, just the perfect person to have along on a miserable drive. In fact, I was discovering that Christine was the kind of person I wanted to have around all the time. She lit up every room and brought a fun, positive energy to any event. Mary often stood on the sidelines during games and group activities, but Christine was always willing to participate in anything, no matter how silly. When we set out on our road trip, I was convinced that Christine was the cutest girl in the world, although she was a little chubby. Back then, I was young and superficial enough to care about physical appearances. After we'd been on the road all night, we stopped at a gas station. I'd been drinking soda pop to stay awake, and my stomach felt sour and upset. Just thinking about food made me queasy. Christine went into the Quickie Mart and bought herself what looked like the largest portion of chili cheese nachos that I'd ever seen. The sight of those nachos turned my stomach. I couldn't watch her eat them. She must have been starving because she was eating so quickly, and there was chili sauce and nacho cheese everywhere. Looking back, I hate myself for the thoughts I had at that moment, but the sight of this chubby girl in my car devouring chili cheese nachos for breakfast put the brakes on our relationship. It brought out the most superficial and shallowest side of me. I still liked her, in fact. I liked her very much. But the nacho experience cooled my attraction a little. Well, a lot. Now it's from the point of view of Christine. Of course, I had no idea that I'd grossed out Cody out with my nachos. I was an overweight kid who liked junk food a little too much. And of all the junk foods in the world, chili cheese nachos were my favorite. When we finally got to the ranch, Cody transformed into a hero. He was a total stud. All the girls on the trip watched him with their mouths wide open, myself included. I'd seen Cody in action back in Utah. I'd seen him display his talents in church, and I'd see how he transformed himself into the life of every party. But now I was seeing a whole new side of him. Ooh. Get it together, Lindsay. Jeez Louise. Why is this so difficult? Okay. Cody was the complete cowboy. At the ranch, he was instantly in his element. He got right in there and wrangled cows. He worked the fields. He shoveled and cleaned and got down and dirty with all the animals. I was totally impressed. I thought Cody was the coolest guy in the world. When I got back home, I was gushing about Cody to a friend. She knew that I wanted to be a third wife, so we came up with a plan. She'd marry Cody first and be his second wife. A few months later, I would join them as a third wife. I took this plan much more seriously than my friend, who eventually got married to another man. My visit to Wyoming had made a fantastic impression on me, and I was eager to return. I'd become very close to Cody's sister, so when she invited me to spend the summer with her at the Browns Ranch, I accepted immediately. While I was living with the Browns, a local family started to express their interest in our faith. They had a daughter who, on one visit, spotted a picture of Cody. The minute I saw her look at it, I knew she'd be interested in him. I felt very threatened by her. She was beautiful and thin, and I was immediately afraid she'd catch Cody's eye. A few months later, when I met her, this girl was invited to come to an event in Utah for the younger members of our faith. Since I was going down, it fell to me to drive her and to introduce her to some of my friends. Not doing so would have appeared selfish. I drove the new girl and her brothers to Utah. The whole ride down, I kept saying to myself, "What are you doing, you idiot?" I was completely threatened by her. When I got to the youth event, I immediately realized that all my fears were well-founded. Right away, Cody and Mary took a particular notice of her. Their interest was overwhelming and undeniable. I was heartbroken and jealous, tortured by the fact that Cody seemed to find her more attractive than me. To make things worse, she and Mary hit it off immediately. They became inseparable, instantaneous best friends. One morning after I returned from the ranch, Cody and Mary came to pick me up. We made plans to spend the day together in the city. Before we left, we lingered on the porch of my parents' house. Cody and Mary had strange looks on their faces. They seemed excited but a little nervous. Then they told me that they were courting the girl I'd introduced them to at the youth conference. I was devastated. It ruined my day. In fact, it ruined my year. I decided then and there I was not going to marry Cody no matter what happened. It wasn't because of Cody. It was because of the girl he and Mary were courting. She was too young and too cute, and I just couldn't see her in my future. I broke off the friendship. I couldn't be around Cody and Mary while they were courting someone else. Cody and Mary's news was not the most devastating blow I received that year, not by a long shot. After a few months after I returned to Utah, my parents told me they were getting a divorce. Even worse, my mother had decided to leave our faith, which felt like the worst kind of abandonment. I was stunned and inconsolable. I felt as if my world was disintegrating. I'd seen no signs of trouble between my parents, and I couldn't imagine a life in which we would no longer be a cohesive family. I completely shut down. I didn't want anything to do with any of my old friends. I couldn't bear associating with people in Cody's circle, or people had known my family when it was intact. I turned inward. I told my father that I wasn't interested in dating, and that if a boy approached him and expressed interest in me, I didn't want to know about it. I was so shaken by my parents' divorce that I wanted to make sure I was solid in my faith before I committed myself to someone else. Naturally, I questioned the whole concept of marriage. If my parents couldn't sustain their relationship, what chance did I have when the time came? Even though I'd cut myself off from a lot of my friends, Mary and I still talked on the phone from time to time. I resisted these phone calls because I didn't want to hear about the courtship. It had been prolonged because Cody and Mary wanted to wait for the girl they were courting to turn 18 before making their engagement official. Even though I wanted nothing to do with it, I heard when they got engaged, and I knew when they set the date for the wedding. A week before the wedding, I received a phone call. I was standing in the kitchen when I answered the phone. It was Mary on the other end of the line. My heart nearly exploded with joy when Mary explained that the wedding had been called off. It was the happiest day of my life. I felt as if I could re-enter the world again. I immediately welcomed Cody and Mary back. But my happiness was short-lived. One day, completely out of the blue, Cody called me up. "Christine," he said, "Janelle is driving me crazy. I can't stand it. She really frustrates me." "Who is Janelle?" I said. I had no idea who he was talking about. "You know her," Cody said. "You've met her here and there." I had no idea why Cody was bringing the problem to me. Anyway, there was a simple solution. If this woman Janelle was making Cody crazy, wouldn't the easiest thing to do is to stop associating with her? How wrong I was. The next I knew, he and Mary had married Janelle. Of course, I thought this was really weird because Cody had told me that she was driving him crazy. It took me a while to realize what kind of crazy Cody had meant. After Janelle joined their family, they moved to Wyoming. I had just let Cody and Mary back in my life, and now they had moved away with another wife. I hadn't just lost a man who was special to me, I'd lost one of my best friends. Go to part 3.